everyone, good afternoon. By the way, my name is Nikki C. Abuhan.
And I am Quen T. Asibilio.
So this lesson is all about Freud's theory of psychosexual personality development.
Here's our topic. So this is the title, Freud's theory of psychosexual personality development. So Freud proposed that psychological development in childhood takes place in a series of fixed psychosexual stages. So there are 5 psychosexual stages, and these are the oral, anal, phallic, latency, and the genitals. So these are called as psychosexual stages because each of the stages represent the fixation of libido on a different area of the body. So fixation refers to the theoretical notion that a portion of the individual's libido has been permanently invested in a particular stage of his development. If fixation occurred in a certain stage in this childhood, it could have a lasting effect well into adulthood. So in describing human personality development as psychosexual, Freud meant to convey that what develops is the way in which sexual energy accumulates and is discharged as we mature biologically. So, by the way, this is Freud. So Freud believed that life was built around tension and pleasure, and that the build-up of tension caused a lot of conflict. So it must be controlled in order to satisfy social demands. This sets up a conflict between frustrated wishes and social norms. He also states that Freud stressed the 5 years of life are crucial to the formation of adult personality. Now, the idea of libido and fixation is centered around different areas of the way body at different stages of growth, which is why calls it a psychosexual development.
These are the 5 stages of Freud's psychosexual development. So, the first Freud stages of psychosexual development is the oral stage. Age range is birth to 1 year. The erogenous zone is in the mouth. In the first stage of personality development, the libido is centered in baby's mouth. During the oral stage, the infant's primary source of interaction occurs through the mouth. So the rooting and sucking reflex is especially important. The mouth is vital for eating, and the infant derives pleasure from oral stimulation through satisfying activities such as tasting and sucking. Freud said oral stimulation could lead to an oral fixation in later life. We see oral personalities all around, such as smokers, nail biters, finger chewers, and thumb suckers. Oral personalities engage in such oral behaviors, particularly when under stress, which at this stage in life are oral or mouth-oriented, such as sucking, biting, and breastfeeding. It gets much satisfaction from putting all sorts of things in mouth to satisfy the libido and thus its demand. So the next one is the anal stage. Age range is 1 to 3 years. The erogenous zone is bowel and bladder control. During the anal stage, Freud believed that the primary focus of the libido was on controlling bladder and bowel movements. The major conflict at this stage is toilet training. The child has to learn to control their bodily needs. The libido now becomes focused on the anus, and the child derives great pleasure from defecating. The child is now fully aware that they are person in their own right and their wishes can bring them into conflict with the demands of the outside world. According to Freud, success at this stage is dependent upon the way in which parents approach toilet training. Parents who utilize praise and rewards for using the toilet at the appropriate time encourage positive outcomes and help children feel capable and productive. So, the next one is the phallic stage. Range is 3 to 6 years, and the erogenous zone is the genitals. Freud suggested that during the phallic stage, the primary focus of the libido is on the genitals. Sensitivity now becomes concentrated in the genitals, and masturbation in both sexes becomes a new source of pleasure. At this stage, children also begin to discover the differences between males and females. The child becomes aware of anatomical sex differences, which sets in the motion and conflict between erotic attraction, resentment, rivalry, jealousy, and fear, which Freud called the Oedipus complex in boys and the Electra complex in girls. So the Oedipus complex is described these feelings of wanting to possess the mother and the desires to replace the father. However, the child also fears that he will be punished by the father for these feelings. Fear of Freud term castration anxiety. So the Oedipus complex is the most important aspect of phallic stages. This is one of Freud's most controversial ideas and one that many people reject outright. So the next one is electrocomplex. The electrocomplex, it has been used to describe a similar set of feelings experienced by young girls. Freud, however, believed that girls instead experience penis envy. So, the electrocomplex is less than satisfactory. So, briefly, the girl desires the father but realizes that she does not have a penis. The girl resolved this by repressing her desires for her father and substituting the wish for a penis with the wish for a baby. The girl then represses her feelings and identifies with the mother to take on the female gender role.
So now I'm going to continue the stages of psychosexual. I'm going to talk about how this fixation of libido is focused on different part of the body.
The fourth stage is the latency period. So this is usually between 6 to 12 years old. So it's not focused in the one body, rather it's starting to be directed in other areas such as intellectual pursuits and social interaction. So in latency stage, no further psychosexual development takes place during this stage. So Freud thought that most sexual impulses are repressed during the latent stage, and sexual energy can be sublimated towards schoolwork, hobbies, and friendship. So this is the time that the child enters school and become more concerned with peer relationship and other interests, and play between children and starts to become largely confined to children of the same gender. And any fixation at this point doesn't really develop in an adult fixation. And the last one is the genital stage. So genital stage, it occurs 12 and above, at the age of 12 and above. So during this stage, they develop the sexual maturity towards the opposite sex that lasts well into their life. And the goal of this stage is to establish a balance between the various life areas. So, it is the time of adolescent sexual experimentation, the successful resolution of which is settling down in a loving one-to-one relationship with another person. So, for example, fixation at the oral stage may result in a person gaining sexual pleasure primarily from kissing and oral sex rather than sexual intercourse. So for Freud, the proper outlet of the sexual instinct in adult was through heterosexual intercourse. Fixation and conflict may prevent in this, with the consequence that sexual preservation may develop. So in the first stage, the focus was solely on individual needs, but in this stage, their interest in the welfare of the others. So these are the 5 stages of psychosexual for Freud's theory. So thank you so much for listening.